Have you ever found yourself sitting at your desk, staring at the clock, wondering why it feels like the hours stretch on forever? Or maybe you've caught yourself thinking, I used to love my job, but now it just feels exhausting. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many people in their 60s and beyond start to feel a shift, not just in their energy levels, but in how they view their lives and priorities. Retirement is often seen as this big, far-off milestone, something that happens when you hit 65, 67, or 70. But what if I told you that waiting until then might actually be holding you back from living your best life? Today, we're going to talk about 8 signs that could mean you're ready to retire earlier than you think. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Retire early? But what about my finances? What will I even do with all that free time? Those are valid concerns, and we'll touch on them as we go along. But for now, let's focus on the signs themselves, because recognizing them can help you make a decision that's right for you. This isn't about following someone else's timeline. It's about listening to your body, your mind, and your heart. So, where do we start? Let's dive into the first sign: feeling constantly drained or overwhelmed by work. You know that old saying, you don't stop laughing because you grow old, you grow old because you stop laughing? Well, there's a version of that for energy too. When work starts to feel like a never-ending uphill battle, it might be time to ask yourself if it's still worth it. Maybe you've noticed that Monday mornings feel heavier than they used to, or that Friday afternoons no longer bring that sense of relief they once did. It's easy to brush these feelings off as part of getting older, but they could actually be your body's way of telling you it's time for a change. Think about it this way. When you were younger, work probably gave you a sense of purpose. It challenged you, excited you, and maybe even helped define who you were. But as we age, our needs evolve. What once fueled us might now drain us. For example, imagine spending decades climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize that the top doesn't feel as rewarding as you thought it would. Or picture someone who's spent years running their own business, pouring every ounce of energy into making it successful, only to wake up one day and wonder, is this really what I want to keep doing? These aren't failures. They're natural shifts in perspective that come with experience and maturity. Now, before you jump to conclusions, let me clarify something. Feeling tired at work doesn't automatically mean you need to retire tomorrow. Life has its ups and downs, and everyone goes through phases where they feel burned out. But if this feeling has become your norm rather than an occasional blip, it's worth paying attention to. Ask yourself, do I feel more energized on weekends or vacations than I do during the work week? Does the thought of staying in my current role for another 5 years make me anxious instead of hopeful? If the answers are yes, it might be time to consider whether retiring sooner could give you the break you need. Moving on to the second sign: losing interest in things that used to excite you. Have you ever picked up a hobby or passion project and realized halfway through that you'd rather be doing anything else? Or maybe you've started skipping social events or activities that used to bring you joy. This lack of enthusiasm doesn't just apply to work. It can seep into other areas of your life too. And while it's normal to outgrow certain interests over time, a widespread loss of motivation can be a red flag. Let me share a quick story with you. A family friend named Debbie was a dedicated teacher for over 30 years. She loved her students, she loved her subject, and she loved the impact she had on young minds. But somewhere along the way, that spark began to fade. She started dreading lesson plans, avoiding faculty meetings, and counting down the days until summer break. At first, she chalked it up to stress or burnout, but deep down, she knew something bigger was happening. Eventually, she decided to retire 2 years earlier than planned, and guess what? She hasn't looked back since. Instead, she's rediscovered her love for painting, joined a local book club, and spends her mornings taking long walks with her dog. By stepping away from a job that no longer fulfilled her, she created space for new passions to emerge. The key takeaway here is that losing interest doesn't mean you're losing yourself. It means you're evolving. And sometimes, evolution requires letting go of what no longer serves you. If you find yourself nodding along to this idea, take a moment to reflect on what truly excites you these days. Is it travel? Volunteering? Spending more time with family? Whatever it is, retirement could give you the freedom to pursue those things without the constant pressure of work hanging over your head. Now that we've covered the first two signs, feeling constantly drained and losing interest in what used to excite you, let's move on to the third one. Imagine waking up each morning and feeling like you have nothing left to prove. Sounds liberating, doesn't it? That's exactly what we're going to explore next. Let's talk about that third sign, feeling like you've already accomplished what you set out to do. You know, there's something incredibly powerful about reaching a point in life where you can look back and say, I did it. I built a career, provided for my family, made a difference, and now I'm ready for the next chapter. It's not about giving up or throwing in the towel. It's about recognizing that you've earned the right to step back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. For many people, this realization sneaks up quietly. Maybe it's during a quiet moment at work when you catch yourself thinking, haven't I already proven myself enough? Or maybe it's while chatting with a younger colleague who reminds you of the ambition you once had and how far you've come since then. Take Charlie, for example. Charlie spent nearly 4 decades as an engineer, designing systems and solving problems that seemed impossible at first glance. He was good at his job, respected by his peers, and proud of his accomplishments. But somewhere along the way, he started to feel like he was running on autopilot. The challenges that once thrilled him now felt routine, almost predictable. One day, while mentoring a young intern, Charlie realized something profound. The fire in the intern's eyes was the same fire he used to have. And instead of feeling jealous or threatened, he felt content. Content because he'd already lived that chapter of his life, and now it was someone else's turn to take the reins. That's when Charlie knew it was time to retire, not because he couldn't keep going, but because he didn't need to anymore. This sense of completion is such a beautiful thing. It's like finishing a marathon after months of training. Sure, you could probably run another mile if you pushed yourself, but why would you? You've already crossed the finish line. Retirement gives you permission to savor that victory, to sit back and enjoy the view without constantly striving for more. And let's be honest, after decades of hard work, don't you deserve that? Now, let's shift gears a little and talk about the fourth sign, physical health starting to take center stage. As we age, our bodies naturally slow down, and that's okay. It's part of the process. But here's the thing. Ignoring those changes can have serious consequences, especially if you're still pushing yourself too hard at work. Have you noticed that you're feeling more tired than usual, even after a full night's sleep? Or maybe you've started experiencing aches and pains that weren't there before. These aren't just minor inconveniences. They're signals from your body telling you to slow down. For instance, consider Frances, a retired nurse who decided to keep working part-time well into her late 60s. She loved helping people, and she figured she was healthy enough to keep going. But over time, she began noticing that her knees were aching more often, and her energy levels were dropping faster than ever. At first, she tried to push through it, thinking it's just part of getting older. But one day, she woke up unable to walk without sharp pain shooting through her legs. Her doctor told her it was arthritis, likely exacerbated by years of standing and moving around on the job. That was the wake-up call Frances needed. She finally hung up her scrubs and focused on taking care of herself. Today, she spends her days gardening, swimming, and spending quality time with her grandchildren, all things she wouldn't have been able to do if she hadn't listened to her body earlier. The lesson here is simple. Your health should never be sacrificed for the sake of staying busy. If you're finding it harder to keep up with the physical demands of your job, or if stress is starting to affect your mental and emotional well-being, it might be time to reconsider how much longer you want to stay in the workforce. Remember, retirement isn't just about enjoying free time. It's also about preserving your health so you can live fully in the years ahead. Speaking of living fully, let's move on to the fifth sign. Feeling like you're missing out on life's precious moments. This one hits close to home for a lot of people, especially those who are grandparents or nearing that stage. Picture this. Your grandchild has a school play coming up, and they're so excited to see you in the audience. But you're stuck in yet another meeting, watching the clock tick by while guilt gnaws at you. Or maybe it's your spouse planning a dream vacation, but you're too tied up with work commitments to join them. These missed opportunities add up, and over time, they can leave you feeling disconnected from the people and experiences that matter most. Think about Susan, a former accountant who stayed in her job longer than she intended because she thought she needed to maximize her savings. On paper, it made sense. She wanted to ensure she'd have enough money to live comfortably in retirement. But what she didn't realize was how much she was sacrificing in the meantime. Her kids grew up, got married, and had children of their own, and she wasn't there for many of those milestones. By the time she finally retired, she felt like she'd missed out on so much of her family's story. Looking back, she wishes she'd prioritized being present over padding her bank account. "You can't put a price tag on memories," she told me recently. And trust me, no amount of money will make up for the moments you miss. So ask yourself, are you trading tomorrow's happiness for today's security? If the answer is yes, it might be worth rethinking your timeline. Yes, financial stability is important, but so is making sure you're around to witness and celebrate the big and small moments in life. After all, isn't that what retirement is supposed to be about? Creating space to connect, explore, and truly live? As we continue to unpack these signs, let's transition to the sixth one, which is all about rediscovering your sense of purpose outside of work. When you've spent decades building a career, it's easy to tie your identity to what you do for a living. But what happens when that chapter ends? Believe it or not, some of the most fulfilling years of your life can happen after you retire, if you're willing to embrace the possibilities. Let's dive into that next. Let's talk about the sixth sign, rediscovering your sense of purpose outside of work. For many people, their job becomes such a central part of who they are that it's hard to imagine life without it. But here's the beautiful truth. Retirement doesn't mean losing your purpose. It means finding new ways to define it. Think about it this way. When you were younger, maybe your purpose was providing for your family or climbing the career ladder. Now, in this next chapter of life, your purpose might shift toward nurturing relationships, giving back to your community, or simply doing things that bring you joy. The key is to approach retirement not as an ending, but as a beginning, a chance to explore passions and interests you may have set aside years ago. Take Robert, for example. Robert spent most of his adult life as a corporate executive, traveling the world and closing big deals. He thrived on the adrenaline rush of high-stakes negotiations, and he loved the prestige that came with his position. But when he retired at 62, he found himself feeling adrift, like he'd lost a piece of himself. At first, he filled his days with golf and crossword puzzles, but something still felt missing. Then one day, while volunteering at a local food bank, Robert discovered a new passion: mentoring young entrepreneurs from underserved communities. He started leading workshops, sharing his business expertise, and watching these young people grow and succeed under his guidance. Suddenly, he didn't feel retired anymore. He felt alive, useful, and deeply fulfilled in a completely different way. That's the power of redefining your purpose. If you're starting to feel like your current role no longer aligns with what truly matters to you, it could be a sign that it's time to step away and explore other avenues. Retirement gives you the freedom to ask yourself, what do I want my legacy to look like? How can I use my skills and experiences to make a difference? And trust me, the answers don't have to be grand or world-changing. Sometimes, purpose is found in the smallest, most unexpected places, like teaching your grandkids how to bake cookies or planting a garden that blooms year after year. Now let's move on to the seventh sign. Feeling financially ready, or at least closer than you think. One of the biggest fears people have about retiring early is running out of money. And yes, finances are important. They're the foundation that allows you to live comfortably and pursue your dreams. But here's the thing. Many people underestimate just how prepared they actually are. Have you taken the time recently to sit down and review your savings, investments, and Social Security benefits? If not, it might be worth doing so before dismissing early retirement altogether. You might be surprised by how much financial flexibility you already have. For instance, meet Diane, a retired teacher who always assumed she'd need to work until 70 to afford the lifestyle she wanted. But when she finally sat down with a financial advisor in her mid-60s, she learned that her pension, combined with her retirement accounts and Social Security, would cover her expenses comfortably, even if she scaled back a little. Armed with this knowledge, Diane decided to retire at 65 instead of waiting 5 more years. She traded her 2-story house for a cozy condo, cut back on dining out, and embraced a simpler way of living. And guess what? She hasn't looked back since. In fact, she says those extra 5 years gave her the gift of time. Time to travel, volunteer, and enjoy her hobbies without the constant pressure of work looming over her head. The takeaway here is simple. Don't assume you're not ready financially without taking a closer look. Talk to a trusted advisor, crunch the numbers, and consider what trade-offs you're willing to make. Remember, retirement isn't about having endless wealth. It's about having enough to live happily and meaningfully. Finally, let's touch on the 8th and final sign, craving more control over your time. This one resonates with so many people because, let's face it, time is our most precious resource. When you're working full-time, your schedule often feels dictated by meetings, deadlines, and responsibilities. But in retirement, you get to decide how your days unfold. Whether it's sleeping in, taking a midday nap, or spending hours reading a book you've been meaning to get to, the freedom to design your own routine is priceless. I'll never forget a conversation I had with Frank, a retired mechanic who used to joke that he worked harder in his 60s than he did in his 30s. He loved fixing cars, but the long hours and physical demands eventually took their toll. When he finally retired, he told me, "The best part isn't the money or the vacations. It's knowing that my time belongs to me now." He wakes up every morning without an alarm clock, takes leisurely walks around the neighborhood, and spends his afternoons tinkering on old cars. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. That sense of autonomy has transformed his life in ways he never expected. So, as we wrap up these 8 signs, let's take a moment to reflect on what they all have in common. Each one points to a deeper truth. Retirement isn't just about stopping work. It's about creating space for the things that truly matter. It's about listening to your body, honoring your desires, and embracing the unique opportunities that come with this stage of life. Yes, there will be challenges along the way, but remember, small changes can make a big difference in your health, happiness, and overall well-being. Before we go, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these signs resonated most with you? Are you considering retiring earlier than planned, or have you already made the leap? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I read every single one, and I know others will benefit from hearing your story too. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We're here to support you every step of the way. Here's to living your best life at any age. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, take care and keep shining.